So things are alight here like it would be at Christmas time. Reds and greens and blues. Great effects on my brand new Hot Wheels Chrome keyboard that I got for free. Actually, I was looking on eBay last night in the giveaway section, and this came up, and I have to say, really pleased, really pleased. So that's all fired up, looking amazing. Probably one of the best visual additions that I've got on my lab. And tonight is really just opening up Linux and just checking, yeah, kind of the parameters of Wazuh and what I've put in, for fine adjustments really, to start with brute force attack work really, with SSH. So I'm gonna get started. I always have this kind of need to look at the command line or bash or nano every single day. I absolutely love it, and firing up the systems like firing up a jet engine or a Hot Wheels car, right, I guess, in this sense. And let's see what happens. I don't know, I never know what to expect, but I always do learn something and have a lot of fun in the process. And when I'm up and ready, I'll record the next part of the podcast. So I'm going to get to work.
The Little Root Lab is a homegrown, self-learning journey into IT and cybersecurity, narrated by Simon Arnold. It is being built from the ground up, documenting progression through systems, networking, and SOC concepts as it develops, including the mistakes, the learning process, and the real-world growth that comes with it. It is hoped that viewers find value in the series and are able to take something useful from the journey as it unfolds. Enjoy.
So welcome back to the Little Root Lab, and I have to say something that I've noticed in this area of working, and it's to do with the generosity of the people around me. I can't believe how helpful people in IT really are. I've got my Windows 10 all up and ready. I've had to grab a red infrared mouse as well, and put a battery in it, and then find out, it's got the little USB attachment as well. And you know what? That was for free as well. And just the generosity of people really. I'm not sure whether it's like they love all the new stuff and they just throw away the old stuff, but wow, if you're ever thinking of setting up a lab and you haven't yet, or you're in the middle, just look at all the free stuff that's given away. I'm not talking about RAM or SSD and all the typical stories of everything being so expensive, because ultimately not everything is expensive. You can still get a great deal of second-hand stuff and use it for your lab. And when I open up my laptop, my MacBook Pro from 2013, and it's got Kubuntu, and in a second I close it down for clam mode and use it on the big screen. I mean, it's fantastic. Everything's just fantastic. It's literally like opening up my own fighter pilot plane. It's literally like a head-up display, and I love it so much. And this is really what the Little Root Lab's all about. It's about me, using an infrared mouse for the very first time and seeing how it actually plugs in. It's all really kind of rudimentary basics, as well as just also really advanced, what we get to with cybersecurity work and Wazuh, and me just reeling off, just some lines of stuff, that I'm tapping into, whether it's Linux or, I've got my endpoint Windows 10 computer. I mean, I tell you what, this is where it's at, because this is the real life of everything. It's the real life of cybersecurity, I find, really. I'm going to get started, but thoroughly pleased with the mouse now, because the older Logitech keyboard that was also free had a kind of mouse pad on it as well, and yeah, that hasn't been resignated or anything. You know, if I'm ever on a plane or whatever, I'll probably take that keyboard with me because it's fantastic. But right now, big thank you really to everyone in the IT community that's just been so generous and has made my lab possible. It's only cost me €95, the whole setup, and for that I'm just deeply grateful for. I mean, literally 90% of my lab has just been either me swapping stuff, or you know, generous people not wanting their keyboard or not wanting their mouse or whatever, or giving me an extra fan. You know, when I've gone to purchase a Logitech keyboard and they said, you know, there's one guy that I know now and we're in contact because he writes in C++, and he said to me, I know you're working hard on your lab, I'm going to give you a fan and give you the mouse that I've just implemented here. And then a couple of weeks ago I've actually found, you know, writing C++, one textbook in German, I think. I've got them here covered under my logbook, and another one for free as well. I was like, wow, it's fantastic, because these books cost a lot of money. So I'm going to get some work on Wazuh and just check all the functionality really, and I'll get back in a short while. Okay, so welcome back everyone. Welcome back is the mic closer to me, I think it is. So I've just been putting an hour in actually, and there were a few surprises, and this podcast is all about learning as we go, right? And it's now 9:30 at night, and it's all good really. So if you listen to the last episode, you know, I was in Wazuh Manager and I was putting in some properties for brute force work, and I had to write it all in by hand, about 13 lines, and obviously I felt like I broke Wazuh, right? So I deleted it all and saved it, but perhaps I didn't save it. So let's get on to today's session really. And welcome back, by the way. I'm glad you're all here. It's fantastic, you know, what I'm doing, and I'm you know, the listenership's picking up slowly. I think we're up to 9 or 10 or 14 listeners or something. Thanks very much. It's very much appreciated. So let's get into it, shall we? So what I expected at this stage was something very straightforward. You know, open the rule file in Nano, drop into the GNU Nano 7.2, and essentially treat it like I want a live configuration screen in a way, where I could just plug in parameters for brute force detection and immediately see the system reflect those changes. Damn. You know, I mean, that's the intuitive mental model most people start with, especially when you're working directly in the terminal when editing files in real time, you know. But what this actually revealed tonight is that Wazuh doesn't operate like an interactive editor-driven system. It behaves more like a strict configuration pipeline, where nothing becomes real until it exists as a valid, persisted file in the correct location and is re-ingested by the manager process. And I guess what this exercise really exposed to me today was how a Wazuh deployment is structured at the file system and the privilege level, and how easy it is to misinterpret what the system is actually doing when you're interacting with it through the terminal. I mean, I went into the root area today, which was great because it's also lovely to come straight out of it when you type in exit, you know. But when I moved into the root shell using sudo -i, the reason that was necessary is because Wazuh's core configuration and rule engine operates under a protected directory structure. And, you know, the good thing about the repetition is that, like muscle memory for our fingers when we're using the keyboard, and I've been, just press the button there to get the PC back on, but it's really haptic. It kind of, the keyboard layout is brilliant. Sorry, just sidetracking, but with the muscle memory, it really helps with the clunky keys. I mean, I'd love a moon lander, but that's probably another episode. But you do get so used to typing in the stuff that it becomes part of your being in a way. So I was always writing in typically /var/OSSEC, and then you've got like government or local council, you've got the local rules, and it's quite funny when I see like local_rules, and then rules, and then XML at the end. It's very much like the other day, if you were listening to the podcast, when I'm going off a tangent again, it doesn't matter. But what was I doing? Minus no minus pager. I thought, well, I haven't had a pager since the 90s, don't know what you're on about. And I think if you take a bit of, comedy into what you're doing, your energy lasts a lot longer and you can go a lot further with what you're doing. So with the /var/OSSEC, that entire tree is owned by root, and it enforces strict permissions because it directly controls the SIEM detection logic, right? I mean, without the root, you can view the state, but you cannot reliably write or persist configuration changes that the Wazuh manager actually load. So the confusion I ran into with nano and local_rules.xml comes down to how Wazuh handles rule loading. That's a bit of a mouthful. Because Wazuh does not dynamically accept in-memory edits. It's a bit frustrating. It only passes XML rules that exist on disk and are syntactically valid at restart or reload. So obviously when I open the local rules XML in Nano and saw an empty buffer, that wasn't Wazuh failing. That was the file either not existing yet or Nano creating a new file handle because the path was valid, but the file itself hadn't been instantiated in the rule set directory, right? And I've always got to check the status of Wazuh, of sudo system ctl status Wazuh minus manager, right? And it's always not running. So then I do the restart and then I check the status again and it's running, right? So sometimes I just need to go back to see if the damn thing's running. But also, that's why early attempts didn't save correctly in Linux. I mean, Nano does not persist anything unless you explicitly write the buffer to disk using Control-O. I mean, if you exit without confirming write out, you're effectively discarding the buffer, even if it looks like you edited something. I mean, from a SOC engineering perspective, that distinction is critical. I mean, because Wazuh would never ingest a rule that only existed in the editor session, right? It must exist as a physical XML file inside, my kind of, I could tell you this in my sleep, minus var minus OSSEC, /var/OSSEC / etc. and /rules with the / at the end. But and then the next layer of confusion was the presence of the backup artifacts like local_rules XML save and back files. I mean, these are not Wazuh runtime files. They're either editor generated recovery snapshots or failed write attempts. And I mean write as in writing, not left or right. But Wazuh does not treat these as an active configuration, which is why I had to manually inspect and potentially restore them. And the reason we dropped into a root shell wasn't just convenience. It was to align our session with the same privileged context as the Wazuh manager daemon. Wazuh manager, Wazuh remoted, Wazuh analyzed, right? Or analyst, ISD. And believe me, I had to look up what daemon was a while back at Christmas time. I thought to myself, okay, ChatGPT, what is a daemon? Not the demon kind of with the horns, but what is the demon in kind of like the computer sense? And it's fascinating. And you've got to know this stuff. You can't be cross-referencing stuff like what is demon and all this. It just doesn't work because you're in the thick of it, right? Let's come back to it a sec. So, these processes run as privileged services and only read configuration from root-owned directories. So if you try to modify the rules outside of that context, you can create files that exist but are never passed by the bloody rule engine, right? So from a detection engineering perspective, the key takeaway is that rule creation in Wazuh is not editing a file, it's modifying a past security policy layer. The XML structure, including group, rule, if_SID. Do like SID. To go out for a beer with him one night on a Friday night maybe. And event fields like win system event ID, it's not decorative, it really isn't. It's a schema driven logic that feeds directly into the analysis engine. I mean, if that structure is malformed, Wazuh will either ignore the rules silently or throw configuration passing warnings like the invalid element in configuration message I saw earlier. So the real issue wasn't Python and Nano or even saving. It was understanding that Wazuh is a strict configuration driven SIEM where file location determines ingestion, XML validity determines parsing, and daemon context determines whether anything is actually executed. Because this is a learning podcast. I was like, I'm not actually writing in Python, am I? I'm writing in XML, and I'm not in Python, so that's why the workflow ultimately has to be root level access, which is great because I can just go into the root level access now and have the permissions to do that. I loved it. It was great. It's correct var, OSSEC, etc. rules path, valid XML structure, manager restart, log validation via Wazuh, and then a log test. Really. And once that pipeline is understood, the rest of the work, like triggering Windows event ID 4625, which, you've all heard of, brute force simulations and mapping them to MITRE attack T1100, sounds like a robot from Terminator, becomes meaningful detection engineering instead of just command execution, I tell you what, I really quite like memorizing all the four, those 4-digit numbers for all the different things that we're going to do, and I'm going to explain on the podcast. I mean, once that mental model clicks, the work stops being about file editing and starts becoming detection engineering. And from there, testing Windows event ID 4625, of course, the brute force patterns, validating correlation logic and mapping behavior to MITRE attack T1110, shifts from isolated command execution into building a repeatable SOC grade detection pipeline. And you might be thinking, okay, because I was like, I really enjoyed that tonight. That was great. Was I disappointed that I didn't see the Windows brute force attack SSH stuff on XML? Not really, because I got into the root of the problem. That's not actually a pun. It's actually the root. We got to the root of the matter today, which was excellent. So what happens after this stage when I've sorted it all out? Well, We're going to verify the Windows agent connectivity using agent control and then -LC and confirm active log transmission, which would be fun on my clunky Hot Wheels Chrome keyboard, which is lit up like, I don't know, like the film Tron itself, you know. Oh, love it. I mean, if that sticks, I might have to get two keyboards that light up like Christmas. You know, and then we'll have to generate control Windows event ID 4625 failed login events to simulate brute force behavior. Already done that, remember, listen to the other podcasts. I wanted to just make it a bit more cleaner with the XML, that's all. Validate rule matching using var, ossec, bin, Wazuh, log test before relying on the dashboard output. That's real important. And I look forward to going through that. And just really confirm alert creation and correlation behavior inside the Wazuh dashboard. Maybe I have to see about that, because I'm only running Wazuh Manager and Wazuh. I'm not even running Wazuh Indexer and Wazuh Dashboard. I'll have to sleep on that one and pick it up in the morning or just write some notes down of what I'm thinking right now. But otherwise, you know, tune the rule logic, frequency, time frame, field matching to reduce false positives. Map the detection to MITRE ATT&CK T1110 and related authentication abuse techniques. And lastly, really expand the detection model to include related Windows security events for persistence and privilege escalation visibility. You know, I hope you've enjoyed the episode. I did want to say, you know, learning all the commands from Linux and Windows and stuff like that. I think my most favourite one is ls. I love that. And just a tip, if you're building up if you're at the early learning stages of the commands, you know, most important commands, please remember that it's actually -L when you're using -L. It's not -1. Because over Christmas time I was using ls and I think I was using -I, which you can see, but -L and -1 can look really, really similar. As far as I know, there isn't a -1. And if there is, you know, it's used in a different context, but it's always -L, like the small l. And of course I'm using glasses, so it's a bit tricky sometimes, but just wanted to throw that tip out. Otherwise, hope you've enjoyed the podcast as much as I've enjoyed just the learning process tonight. If you picked up any information or you just got anything to add, put it in the comments and follow me, and just can't wait until tomorrow as we carry on. Thanks everyone, and I'll catch you tomorrow.